Hello world, this is 13 again here with a little bit different style of a video today. And I am not going to lie to you, I have been putting this off for a while now. I have really not been wanting to do this video, but I did tell Freedom Motorcars that however they handled the situation with me and my vehicle purchase, that I was going to share it with the world. And I am a man of my word, so here I am. And I don't normally like to focus or spend any time or energy on negative things, but for anyone considering a purchase from Freedom Motorcars, I think this is an important story for them to hear. Now, I'd like to start off by saying that my initial experience with Freedom Motorcars was extremely positive. It's very pleasurable. I even told my salesman, his name was Andy, that he was my second favorite salesman that I had been dealing with over the past week. I literally dealt with a dozen salesmen at a dozen different dealerships, and when I walked onto that lot, I already knew what car I was there to buy. I didn't even walk in, I just went right out to the car. I was looking for a 2011 Nissan Juke manual transmission. I did not require any sales pitches, I didn't require any bargaining, I didn't require any convincing. I went there, they had it listed for $10,900, and I told them if they could just get me out the door at $11,000, I was good. That was the budget, that was how much money I had, that was what I was willing to spend, and that's what I went for. Now, as a side note here, that car, that's a fair deal for it. It's not great, it's not bad, it's fair. 2 days previous to going into Freedom Motorcars, I'd gone down to a Nissan dealership down in St. Pete, and they had a 2011 Nissan Juke there, manual transmission, same mileage, almost the exact same price. And that was a certified pre-owned one, so that actually came with a 3-year factory warranty. And when I went back to go buy that one, it had already sold. So that was a kind of a bummer, but that was fine because Freedom had one there, so I just went over to Freedom to buy that one. And I told them that as long as they were willing to match the price of $11,000, that I was willing to forego the warranty on it. So I showed up at Freedom with $6,000 cash for my down payment, and I decided to finance the remaining $5,000. And it was about the time when I showed up holding an envelope containing my entire checking and savings account that I started to get a little nervous about this purchase. And I told him point blank that the only way that I was going to be able to afford this car was if there were no repair bills, because I wouldn't have the financial reserves to handle any repairs because all of my money was in that envelope for the down payment. So I specifically said I was comfortable with routine maintenance, repairs down the road, that sort of thing. Once I'd recovered financially from the down payment, that was fine. But I just didn't want to buy a car that was defective on the lot. So this is where Andy, the boss or the owner or whatever at Freedom Motorcars, did a really good job reassuring me that Freedom only purchases reliable vehicles, they inspect them for problems, they're a good reputable company, they've been around for a while, that sort of thing. And praise where praise is due, Andy was really good, and he did a great job making sure that I enjoyed the car buying process. Great salesman. Not quite enough to alleviate my anxiety altogether about buying a car that was defective, since I repeatedly said my comical example was that I didn't want to buy a car and have the transmission fall out as soon as I drove off the lot. That was what I said. The point being was that I just didn't want a major repair bill as soon as I drove off the lot. This was $11,000 I was spending on a car. I wanted to make sure it was going to be good. So that fear, he addressed that by selling me a third-party warranty for 3 months of full repair coverage. So I was really happy with that because it sounded great. Any new problem that showed up after 3 months would be just that, a new problem. Not a problem with the car as I bought it, it would be my problem, it would be a new problem. So I thought that was reasonable. I confidently purchased this vehicle with a 3-month warranty. So once I did that, their assistant BJ, he took the Juke down the street to a Winn-Dixie parking lot. I was in a rental car, so I drove down there, and I left the rental car there. I swapped over into the Juke, and I had a new car. And that moment right there is about where the positive experience with Freedom Motorcars ends. As soon as I drove out of the parking lot of Winn-Dixie, the check engine light came on. Now, I didn't know it was a check engine light yet. It actually illuminated and said service engine soon. So to me, a check engine light has always been a little motor icon, right? So I looked at that, and I had just come off this amazing buying experience. I had such a great time with Andy and Chad. I thought they did an amazing job. I thought there's just no way that they would have sold me a bad car. These are good guys. And so I just refused to acknowledge that this is a check engine light. So I rationalize it. I say, well, that must be, it's time for an oil change, you know? So I went on my way. And I drove the car for about a week, which is how long it took for me I put gas in it and then to use up the entire tank. And when I fill up my gas tank from empty for the first time, I calculate that I got 13 miles to the gallon on a vehicle that's rated 23 to 32. So I look at that gas pump, and I look at my gauge cluster at the mileage, and I grab that owner's manual very quickly. That was when I realized that that dash light that said service engine soon does not mean it's time to check your oil. It means it's time to check your engine. Like, your engine has a problem. So I freak out. The very first thing the next day, I call up Andy, and I'm like, dude, I got a check engine light. And he says, don't worry, man. Check engine lights come on all the time. It's probably nothing. Just take it to any local dealership or whatever. They'll check it out, and it'll be covered under the warranty. I'm like, okay, cool. So I scheduled an appointment with the local Nissan dealership for the very next day, and I bring my car in there. And that's when I find out that cylinder 3 fails the compression test with 125 psi when it's supposed to be 190 psi. So what is Nissan's solution? Replace the motor. Now, I know that seems a little drastic, but dealerships realistically don't have the facilities to cost effectively rebuild a motor. They do parts, they do replacements. But let's back up for a second. Here's a fun fact. So before I get to the dealership, before I even find out that I have a defective motor, the third-party warranty that I had purchased, they call me up and to find out what had happened. So I tell them the truth. I bought a car. As soon as I drove off the lot, the check engine light came on. I drove it for a week, not knowing that that was the check engine light. And then when I filled up with gas and got terrible gas mileage, I freaked out and found out it was a check engine light and immediately brought it into the dealership for service. So it didn't take much effort for the warranty company to deny the case based on pre-existing condition. Let me say that again. The warranty that I was sold to protect me from any problems with the car as it sat on the lot specifically states that it will not cover anything wrong with the car as it sits on the lot, which in retrospect makes total sense from a warranty standpoint, but that is in stark contrast to what Chad at Freedom Motorcars verbally assured me and reassured me that I would be fine buying this car because it would have a warranty. So now I have the Nissan techs and I have the warranty company both telling me that I purchased a defective car, and I've got Andy from Freedom Motorcars on the phone telling me that, Nissan doesn't know what they're talking about. They're just trying to make money. They're trying to sell an engine replacement. The service department's the profit generator of the dealership, that sort of thing. And so he says, well, he needs his mechanic to look at it. And to be honest with you, I think that's a very reasonable request. Let's get a second opinion. And if I want them to handle this problem, clearly it's going to be with their mechanic. Now, keep in mind, at this point, I've already paid $100 to Nissan for their techs to evaluate the car. And now I have to pay $100 to the tow truck driver to get my malfunctioning car, which is no longer drivable, from the Nissan dealership over to their mechanic. Which is not exactly fun, because it's at this point when I realize that for the first time since I'm 16, I'm not going to have a car. And that's pretty unsettling. And that's where it gets pretty bad. So I pay to have my car towed from Nissan over to Advanced Auto Repair, which is the mechanic facility suggested to me by Andy and Chad of Freedom Motorcars. And they received that car, the Juke, at their facility on December 21st. Now, here's the caveat about that date, December 21st, is the very next day, Advanced Auto Repair was closing for the holidays. They were giving their mechanics 2 weeks off for the holidays. So I'm upset because it's already been 5 days for me that I haven't had a car. And that's really taxing on my lifestyle. And now I'm being told that I'm not going to be able to go home for Christmas because I'm not going to have a car. And I'm pretty upset about that. So I decide to start calling Freedom Motorcars and letting them know that every single day that I do not have a vehicle, that stress and anxiety is being associated with the name of Freedom Motorcars. And Chad responds very graciously, and he offers to give me a $250 check to cover the expenses associated with a rental car. And so sure enough, that $250 got me 4 days in a rental car. And I did take that rental car across the state to visit my family for Christmas, which was nice. And I really did appreciate that, but at the time I had no idea how long this was going to stretch out. So Advanced Auto Repair officially reopened on January 4th, and they started to work on the Juke on the 6th, and by the 11th, they had figured out the cause of the compression failure to be burnt exhaust valves. So the head of the motor would have to be removed, and it'd have to be rebuilt with new valves, valve guides, and all new gaskets, basically from the head gasket on upwards. Because when you take it apart, you got to put it back together. And I am quoted a $2,200 repair bill for this. So I call up Freedom, and I inform Chad that of the situation. And he says he'll get back with me. So the next day, I get an email from Chad offering to cover $750 of the $2,200 repair bill. So needless to say, I was a little shocked at that offer. A little insulted, honestly. Because at that point, I'd been without a car for 26 days. 26 days without a car. And I had complied with everything that Freedom had asked of me. And I had done it patiently and calmly and politely. And at that point, I was expecting Freedom to just step up to the plate and admit fault. Because at that point, even the mechanic at Advanced Auto Repair had said point blank that the Juke was definitely defective before I bought it. So I replied to his email, and I let him know how I felt about his offer and the way that they were handling the situation and how I believed that they should handle it. And that resulted in a phone call the next day where I wasn't nearly as eloquent or constrained as I was in my email. However, I will say, oddly enough, that my aggression yielded the results, since Chad ultimately changed his offer to cover the bulk of the repair and instead leave me with a $500 repair bill at Advanced Auto Repair rather than $2,200. So 1 week later, the repair has been completed, so I go to pick up the car. I pay my $500 and I get a copy of an estimate, not a paid in full invoice, mind you, which is a little sketchy, but whatever, I get a copy of the estimate and I'm on my way. So when all was said and done, I was without my Juke for 35 days, and I had spent an additional $700 over the agreed upon price tag. So I had actually already made my first car payment on my car before I ever even got to drive it with a fully functioning engine. That is a fact. So now we're at a month later, and how do I feel about this whole situation? Well, it sucked. It was terrible. I really didn't enjoy it, and it was pretty horrible. I know that Freedom did significantly more than they were legally obligated to do. Legally speaking, I recognize the fact that I purchased a car without a warranty and that I am financially responsible for the repairs that that car would need. Because that third-party warranty that they sold me, that was a total scam. Let's just get that out of the way. That didn't count. But I do also know that despite, legally being financially responsible for that repair, my last question for the mechanic at Advanced Auto Repair was that if I had brought the car to him 400 miles previous, as in before I had purchased it, would his diagnosis have been any different? And his answer was no. That problem of that car would have been a long-standing issue, preceded by several persistent check engine lights that were either ignored, cleared out, or otherwise went unresolved. The failure could not have occurred spontaneously or quickly, which is what Freedom told me. So really, it was only a result of continued negligence. So further supporting the fact, straight up, I got sold a lemon. So the thing about the car reselling business is, playing by the numbers, it's gonna happen eventually. You're gonna buy a bad car at auction. It's just gonna happen. So the real question is, as a business standpoint, from an ethical standpoint, is how are you gonna handle that situation when you unfortunately accidentally buy that one bad car at auction? And the way that Freedom handled it was with denial, all the way up to the very end. They denied the Nissan techs, they ignored the warranty company, they questioned everything that I said, they questioned my telling the truth, my honesty, and they even ignored the advice of their very own suggested mechanic at Advanced Auto that said very clearly that the car was bum before I ever bought it. So they just turned a blind eye to all of the evidence in front of them, and they tried to pass the buck on to me. And the truth of the matter is they did a lot more than they had to. They legally didn't have to spend a single dollar on that repair. But for a mere $500 more out of their profit margin, even if they wouldn't have said it out loud, they would have just acknowledged the fact that we all understand what happened. We all know that that car was bad. That Juke sitting on their lot was a pile of junk. And it's the refusal of acceptance of responsibility is what really irritates me and disgusts me. Way more than the money aspect of it. Because the reality is that the majority of the cars that they buy are going to be good. So therefore, the majority of the transactions that they perform are going to go over well. And their customers are going to like them. Because I know I liked them. I liked them a lot. Right up until the moment when I found out that they'd sold me a junk car. So the question is what's going to happen the next time this happens? When they accidentally buy another bad car at auction? How are they going to handle it then? And mine was a cut and dry, clearly, as soon as I drove off the lot, check engine light came on. But what about the situation where it takes like a month for that person's car to go bad? So here is my advice for the situation, if that happens. Get aggressive really quickly. Because my life philosophy of getting more with sugar than salt did not apply to Freedom Motorcars. They capitalized on my patience and my tolerance and understanding, and they only responded amicably when I started yelling. And I just never want to go through that ever again. It was a terrible experience, and I just don't believe that's how you should treat people. That's how I feel about that. So that's the story of how I purchased my 2011 Nissan Juke. And the fun part here is that the entire experience is documented on the Juke forums. because the night that I bought my Juke, I signed up for the Juke forums online, and I made my first post the night before I took it into the Nissan dealership. So you can see a play-by-play, real-time, day-by-day, full-on documentation of this entire experience, including all of the emails, verbatim, cut and pasted from them and from me, so you can really see precisely how this went down. And my mentality throughout the entire thing, I feel I was pretty understanding and pretty tolerant. It was decent, handled it well. So the content on the forums, it has not been edited. It can't be edited. The timestamps can't be falsified. So that is an irrefutable testament to exactly how this went down. If you want more details, or if you want any of the specifics, or, you know, if you're actually curious about this. For me, though, I've got my Juke now, and I love it. She's running nicely now that she's been repaired, and I'm having a lot of fun working on it, and I really look forward to turning it into a nice show car, and, you know, it's a beautiful canvas. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But most importantly, I'm just really excited to be able to put all that negativity behind me and move on and start putting my energy again relegated towards something positive and constructive, because that's where I belong. That makes me happy, and when I'm happy, other people around me are happy, and really my ultimate goal here is just to make the world a better place, one car at a time. So that's what I'm gonna do. Thanks a lot for listening to the story, you know, and the next video I post will be a lot more positive, okay? But until then, have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.